10 legislative days make 4 weeks. That's how long Nigerian women occupied the gates of the National Assembly, being cooked under the sun. They marched, they danced, they sang. They barricaded the gates of the National Assembly, demanding equal rights with their male counterparts. They got a court judgment in favor of just one of their 5 demands. Is that enough? Can it be implemented? And what next? Well, my guest on the program is a co-convener of the protest, and she tells us what the next plans are. Our focus on the nation's capital takes a look back at the protests and this court judgment. And as we do every week, we give you a wrap-up of major stories from the nation's capital. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. Let's begin with a look at the major stories from Nigeria's seat of power.
How are you? Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
During this week, President Muhammadu Buhari received the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, and their talks centered on food security for Nigeria. President Buhari applauded the $1.5 billion emergency food plan developed by the bank, which is awaiting ratification by its board to forestall food crisis in Africa owing to the Russia-Ukraine war. The president also had audience with the governors of Cross River, Kebbi, and Sokoto states. The Federal Executive Council has approved the engagement of transaction advisors for consultancy services for the concession of the Ajaokuta Steel Company Limited, as well as the National Iron Ore Mining Complex in Itakwe, in a sum of 853.26 million naira, inclusive of 7.5% VAT. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, disclosed this at the end of the Federal Executive Council meeting, chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari.
The Council has approved the award of contract, not just for the Ajaokuta Steel Complex, but also for the iron ore. When these two complexes, two plants, when they begin to function, then not only are we going to save a lot of money in terms of foreign exchange, but you're going to see a lot of industrial development and also technology transfer.
The federal government has stated that it has no regrets about its decision to abstain from voting against the suspension of Russia from the United Nations Human Rights Council. The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada, stated this during today's weekly ministerial briefing at the State House. He notes that Nigeria remains in good diplomatic standing with the Eastern Bloc, even though it stands in condemnation of Russia's military operations in Ukraine.
The issue of the UN resolution, any regret? No regrets whatsoever for what happened, because we believe that we voted rightly at the time that we did.
President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday in Abuja urged all political parties in the country to keep elections and election-related differences aside and join the administration's drive to defeat insecurity in the country. Speaking at an iftar dinner with members of the business community and the leadership of political parties, the president described insecurity as a common enemy bedeviling the country. The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is commending the growing resilience of Nigeria's non-oil export sector, hopeful that the many interventions from the Buhari-led administration into the sector will yield better results in the coming years. He said this while delivering the keynote address at the first installment of the National Conference on Non-Oil Exports, hosted by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council in Abuja.
We must seek to achieve a situation where regulators see themselves as facilitators of business, as opposed to policemen or those who may just provide some obstacles. The very best approach is for regulators to see themselves as those that must promote business, and that their success will be measured against the success of business.
The Vice President has had dinner with all journalists attached to the State House, hosting them to the iftar at his private residence, the Aguda House at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The Vice President took the opportunity to ask for the support of the journalists in his bid to be president, promising to be open to accountability by the media if he becomes president. The Senate has amended the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 to criminalize collection of ransom from the release of kidnapped victims, as well as offering assistance and information to terrorist groups. In the amended bill, any persons who knowingly arranges, collects, or provides logistics for any activities connected with terrorism is liable on conviction to imprisonment for a term not less than 20 years. The passage of the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013 Amendment Bill 2022 follows the constitution of a report by the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters.
This is one bill, one piece of legislation that can turn around not only the security situation in Nigeria, but even the economic fortunes of our country.
Welcome back. Several bills beneficial to women were rejected by the National Assembly. The bills had to do with the request for 111 special seats for women, indigenship status for women, citizenship status for women, 35% representation of women in party leadership, and more appointive positions for women in government. Following this situation, the women protested at the gates of the National Assembly and got a court judgment favoring one of the 5 bills. Our focus on the FCT takes us back to the days the women demanded they be heard.
It was 9 days of protest at the gates of the National Assembly as Nigerian women demanded equal rights with their male counterparts. The women converged on the National Assembly roundabout just by the 3-arm zone. A quick charge from their conveners and they are off to the National Assembly, and this was the routine every single day.
We are now going to send you a message.
Every day, the women met the gates to the National Assembly locked, with security personnel stationed behind the gates. This never deterred the women who bore placards and protest signs chanting protest songs. These protests started a day after the National Assembly voted against 5 gender bills in the constitution amendment process.
A constitution cannot appear discriminatory on itself. So the constitution discriminates against women, and the word "in" was used entirely in the constitution, as if the constitution was made for the men. In 235 places.
And no interpretation clause.
And no interpretation clause of what the "in" means. The 2 places where the constitution talked about women were places where they were discriminatory, where they wanted to bring the issue of child marriage. Talking about who is an adult and says when a woman is married, the woman is an adult. In a country where we know that 10-year-old, 12-year-old are being forced to marry. So, and if you look at even the consideration, and that's why I said it's the minimum irreducible, that issue didn't come up as one of the issues that they want to change because they want to continue to do that.
On day 1, the protesters were met by a delegation from the National Assembly. The protesters refused to be addressed by the delegation and insisted on seeing the Senate President or the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
As far as we are concerned, something can be done about it because they still have tomorrow to still look at the Constitution. So we are asking them, the best thing for them to do right now is to get back those bills and have a revote on them and do the right thing. Because it's even embarrassing. I was today chatting with a friend of mine from Uganda, and she just could not understand how men will vote against citizenship.
The protesters also threatened to sanction the lawmakers who voted against laws favorable to women. The Minister of Women Affairs agrees with them by issuing a subtle threat. She also states the position of the executive.
What happened yesterday was most unfortunate and a big show of shame. But I urge all Nigerians to help us pray for the men that killed this bill yesterday in the National Assembly. And I want to assure you that all hope is not lost. We are strategizing with the female members in the both houses of assembly. And I want to assure you that Nigerian women will not give up. We will keep pushing until we achieve the affirmative action.
This chamber will witness.
Prior to the voting, the wife of the president, Mrs. Aisha Buhari, had observed a plenary session in a move to push for the passage of the gender bills. The wife of the vice president followed in her step by attending the plenary session on the day of the voting. These advocacies did not yield the needed results. The women groups vowed not to let go of the issue, and on the last day of the protests, the women walked through the gates headed for the National Assembly chambers. They were stopped by security personnel.
This is clear obstruction of our duties. You can't do this to us. Honestly, you can't do this to us, and it's unfair. For somebody like you, we've been together all this while out there, and you know it. But for you to now come into...
So why are you afraid of us now?
No, because you are now compelling us, you want to compel us to start doing things that ordinarily we can't do to our mothers.
I think the same police is our friend. I think the same police is...
After sitting for hours, a contingent led by the House leader, Adodogwa, made its way to the women with an urgent plea.
I am giving you our words once again, that while we will expect you to leave the street, we will also give you a commitment that we will definitely look at these two things as promptly as possible.
The women agreed and promised to shelve their protest for 7 legislative days.
We are going to take you and the leadership because we know you can do it. You are here before God, before men. You have given us 7 days.
7 legislative days.
7 which is about 2 weeks.
Yes, 2 weeks.
It's about 2 weeks. And what you are asking for us, we understand. You are saying we suspend our strike for that number of days. Our occupation for the number of days. Then we hope that at the end of the 7 days, on our own, we will try as much as possible to reach people in their constituency. We do hope that you would help us to also speak with your members, because it's a matter of voting.
And the Senate.
And the Senate, because we know that the Senate had voted 2 of those issues that you have 3, which is the citizenship and the indigenship. So we only have about 2, which is the appointment and also the party administration, which we are lobbying with the Senate. We know you have to vote again. And we know it's that vote that will determine what we will do and what happens in future.
In a country that ranks 181 out of 193 countries because of its poor 3.6 female representation in parliament, it's no surprise that various women and women groups took to the National Assembly to protest lawmakers' decision with a vehement declaration that they won't relent until there is a change of heart. The Incorporated Trustees of Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Women Empowerment Legal Aid and Center for Democracy and Development West Africa, among others, sued the federal government and the Attorney General of the Federation. They sought a court order ensuring the 35% affirmative action policy of the federal government of Nigeria, as contained in sections 42, 147, and 14 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The National Gender Policy 2006 in the governance of the country, among others. On Wednesday, the 6th of April 2022, about a month after the women's protests began, Justice Donatus Okorowo of the Federal High Court in Abuja ruled that the Nigerian government has obligations to implement the 35% affirmative action and included that the national gender policy is not a mere policy statement, but one that must be backed with requisite action on the part of government.
The court agreed with us that over the years, the Nigerian state has been violating the rights of women as pertains to participation in governance. That subsequent or several governments over the years has been marginalizing women in their own country. And the court condemned this act and held that the right of Nigerian women to freedom from discrimination must be recognized and enforced by all authorities and persons in Nigeria.
Women across the nation were thrilled to hear that the court also ordered that henceforth the government must not make appointments that violate the 35% affirmative action, and now wait patiently for the lawmakers to respond accordingly. It's been almost a month since the passing of this court's judgment, and the big question is, what next? Yes, a court's judgment is valid, but will it be enforced? The lawmakers need to do more than just announce that the bills are being reconsidered. Where is the action? What more is being done to goad the lawmakers in the direction of passing these bills? Will the women make good on their threats to picket lawmakers' campaign offices at local levels? With the elections coming up in less than a year, will it be too late for any actual action? Will Nigerian women truly stand behind only pro-women candidates in the elections come 2023?
My guest on the program is the co-convener of the Women Protest, Mrs. Obi, an activist and the country director of Action Aid Nigeria. She is no stranger to demanding for equal rights, having fought for Nigeria's democracy in her youth. She was imprisoned, detained and kidnapped by the then military government and has no plans to stop anytime soon. Did the women march in vain? What does 35% affirmative action mean? And most importantly, what next? Mrs. Obi, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you.
It's been quite a ride, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And thank you again for all the support, the great support from channels. I think every day, of the occupation of National Assembly, you had yourself, the camera people mounted daily, right from even before we open, we lock the gates in the morning. So we just want to say a big thank you to Channels Television and the entire media, journalists, the coverage of the occupation of National Assembly.
A lot of people would like to know where the funding came from for this. Because that's funding, it was a lot of money. From someone who's covering it, it was easy to see that, okay, but there's a lot of money going into this.
Where
was all that funding coming from? Was it Nigerians? Was it international organizations? What was going on?
It was from both national and international. It depends on what we had doing. Because a lot of women and a lot of development partners are working in women-related areas. We have been on this bill for more than, on the GO bills, for more than 18 months. And so there has been a lot of work towards women participation.
You did face some criticism at the time. Some people were saying, oh, is this how you do a protest? You're dancing, you don't look angry enough. But you did hear those things. You don't seem so angry. I mean, you're having a nice time. You're dancing and you're, marching and you're singing. This doesn't look like an angry protest. If you actually believe that your rights were being infringed upon, you should perhaps be angrier.
It's the first time in Nigeria that women will occupy the National Assembly. Occupation is not a rally. A rally, 2-3 hours, you're done. And you go, you come through the gate, and we didn't want to enter the gate of the National Assembly. We didn't want to enter inside National Assembly because if we wanted, we would have gone in. Thousands of women going there, but what are we going to achieve there?
You did on the last day?
Yes, we did on the last day because we felt they were not listening. Because for 10 legislative days, that is 4 weeks, we came in every day. And if you can stand in that sun for 2 hours, you were there, so I don't have to convince you, but for others, knowing what the sun is in Abuja, even when he doesn't open his mouth, the heat is terrible.
After agreeing to stop the protest for 7 legislative days, next thing we heard was about a court judgment.
Yeah.
And then we didn't hear anything else. So my question now is, what's happened? What progress has been made? This particular judgment from the courts. Yes, a judgment is really good. But it's isn't it for just one of the demands for the 35% affirmative action? What about the remaining issues? And why hasn't there been any more protests since then? What happened? Are we satisfied?
When we got to the National Assembly that day, when they knew we had entered, they said we should stop, that they will come to meet us. So a message was sent and said, please stop, we're coming. And we were very calm. We were not disruptive. We listened to people because what are we there for? Change the laws so that more women can go into representation. We're not talking about us. You don't pay us, we pay you. Because you are employed by the Nigerian government, our taxes is the money that they're using to pay you. So you should be responsive, to this. And so when we got to that level, some of the leaders came out And when leaders come to you and say, Nigerian women, on my honor, I am one of the leaders of the National Assembly, on my honor, give us 7 legislative days. You need to calm down. Because we listen.
Did he keep his word?
I think that's another matter. He went back. We have written to him.
Because based on what we're seeing, they didn't keep their word.
They have not kept their words. And in the midst of that, the judgment came. And so the judgment, I think this is one of the things that we're talking, that already the Nigerian Constitution says no discrimination. So who is discriminating against you? When we are watching it, and so when the judgment came in the midst of that, and the judgment is saying, if you are not observing the 35% affirmative action, then the Nigerian government, erred. And so what we want to see from now on the 35% affirmative action is progression. From now on, when you are bringing in, committees or ministers and so on, that's coming.
Is that what we're talking about, the next administration?
That's what we're talking about. That's from not just next administration, when you are doing anything now. Like I was talking to INEC the other day, I said you are going to about 25 of your, commissioners, or is it 27, are going very soon. That's in August. And so I hope that you'll be thinking, because in the 36 plus 1, you have only 1 female. That's terrible. And you have a gender unit within INEC and so on and so forth. So what are we talking about? We want to see that progression. So anybody...
If they don't do it?
If they don't do it, then we'll go to court. There's so many things are on.
Because now there's a judgment that you can take to court.
There's a judgment that we can take.
They haven't done what the court said.
Exactly. So we'll be able
that's progress,
to do that. That's a lot of progress. It's a landmark judgment for Nigeria and for Africa. And we really commend, we wish in the judiciary, a lot of things can happen in this manner, especially as we are going to 2023 elections.
One of the threats that was made by the women at the time was that you were going to picket the campaign offices of these lawmakers, especially the ones who voted against these women-friendly bills. And you said during the elections, come 2023, you were going to vote women. We were going to, or women-friendly politicians. Is this something that's going to be done? And how do you intend to get this done?
No, we applied to get the names of those who voted against the women bill. We applied. They have not responded to it yet. We are still writing because we need to know the names. This is an open book in civilized countries. If you believe you want to vote for something, yes, you have voted for it, but it's okay. But women want to know who voted against the bills of women. Because
you also said you were going to name and shame.
We will name and shame. We will use it. It's not just going to the newspapers. We just circulate it. Because we're 36 states. The representatives in the Senate, they are from the 36 states. And plus 1, plus the FCT, and the representatives in the House of Representatives is also there. Then, all of these bills, we know that in the constitutional amendment, they have transmitted about 46, 46 of the bills, of the other amendments already to the states' houses of assembly. And they will be there. So women are waiting. Women are waiting at those levels to see what is going to happen, to see what is being communicated when these bills are not. But the House of Representatives has said that they will go back. There are certain things that they have done. We want to know whether it has been transmitted. We are following up on that. We are working, we are strategizing for the next steps. I cannot tell you exactly what we are deciding right now, but we are deciding.
We do have to end it there, but
thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us on Dateline Abuja this week, and good luck with the work that you do.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks to my guest and to everyone who was a part of today's program. People feel what they don't understand. Can I be honest? I wasn't shocked at the rejection of the pro-women bills. When the gender equality bill was stepped down a few months ago, a lot of us women got the message. I think it's important going forward to highlight the ways in which gender equality is such an asset, especially to men. This acrimony developing because of what many perceive as a war of the sexes is unnecessary. The 9th Assembly missed an opportunity for infamy. Was it an opportunity worth missing? Maybe for some. The 10th Assembly is up next in less than a year. Maybe they will seize the opportunity to be immortal in the hearts of Nigerian women. We can only hope. That's Dateline Abuja this week. Please let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.